All right. All right. So we're here with Principal Recruiter Gary Conaway. And thank you everyone for joining us here on our live Facebook chat. We're talking with Gary Conaway about all things Amazon, working at Amazon, interviews, recruiting, and all your questions. So we've posted comments, we posted on our LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook channels, and we have gone through a lot of your questions, and Gary is here to give you some insight on what's happening here at Amazon and to answer your questions. So thank you everybody for your questions, and we're going to go ahead and just start here and chat with Gary here in his office here in Seattle. So Gary, if at first you can tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been at Amazon, and what you do.
Great. Well, Gary Conaway. I am a principal technical recruiter here at Amazon. I've been at the company for about 6.5 years now. Oddly enough, I've been on the same team that entire duration, which kind of makes me a bit of an oddity here at Amazon. In terms of my day-to-day role, I lead what internally we refer to as SDE3 recruiting. Externally, you may know it as senior engineer recruiting. SDE3, senior engineers, whichever term you want to use, they really are the backbone of a lot of Amazon's engineering teams here. There are tech leads, there are architects, there are dev leads. Like, they are, in many cases, our thought leaders, our visionaries, and our think big engineers on our teams here. And so I lead a team of recruiters that has a specialized focus in finding those candidates, building long-term relationships with those candidates, and really trying to capitalize on timing when it comes to recruiting them. And so I work across many teams here. I was actually fortunate enough to be one of the first dedicated technical recruiters for the Amazon Video Group back in 2011, and so I've seen that team go through just an enormous growth here. But today, I recruit for other very exciting teams. Number one that comes to mind just really quickly would be the worldwide advertising team that I'm sure a lot of you have heard a lot about in the news recently. Our Amazon Prime Music team, which is doing some really interesting things this year. Groups like IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, Amazon Studios. We really do work across a lot of our digital entertainment and our advertising organizations here.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. So you have a lot of insight to what goes around here for recruiting and sourcing, and I think a big part of some of the questions that we get is, how can an applicant stand out amongst the many applicants that are applying online and through recruiters? So what are your tips to those who say, how should I stand out to you guys?
It's a great question. It's one that I get from candidates. I read through a lot of the comments that were coming through on the Facebook post, on the LinkedIn post yesterday, earlier today, the day before, and this was definitely one of those themes. And so what I decided to do about that was to go around and ask a lot of my recruiter friends, ask a lot of the recruiting managers here. I wanted their take on this answer. I didn't want to be the only one giving advice here, giving suggestions. And so one of the biggest themes that I found when I was talking to a lot of these individuals was that concise, like being concise in a resume. What I'm about to say may sound a little discouraging to some individuals that may be looking for a role or maybe considering applying to a role at Amazon. However, I don't mean it to be discouraging. I'm going to share this because I think it's something important to know. But when myself as a recruiter or any other recruiter here at the company, or even our hiring managers, are reviewing a resume, oftentimes they're making that first initial decision as far as what the next step is going to be. Is this somebody that I'm going to want to speak to? Is this somebody that I'm going to want to move forward in the process? In a matter of 5 to 10 seconds. And that's discouraging because I know that you put a lot more time and effort into a resume than 5 to 10 seconds. And so when you think about the thousands of resumes that some of us are looking through on a daily basis, you really do get a few seconds to make an impact, to be seen, to stand out. And so when I was talking to some of my recruiter friends, they were very consistent. Keep your resume concise. We don't need 5 pages. If you have a CV, if you have a curriculum vitae that where you need to go in depth and explain a lot of your projects and some of your past roles, or maybe some of your research, your educational background, you need to do so, absolutely. But for other roles, especially roles where Amazon may be looking to do high volume recruiting or high volume hiring, so engineering roles, customer service roles, you want to keep it concise. Amazon is a very, very data-driven company, so we like numbers. If you can quantify things, you can quantify your results, you can quantify your expertise. Those are all going to honestly just be bonus points for you in terms of a resume. We love seeing that kind of stuff here at Amazon. But keep it, the top of that resume, your contact information, and what makes you a potential great fit for Amazon. Make sure the next thing on your resume is going to be your work history, and start in reverse chronological order. What are you doing now? What were you doing before then? What were you doing before then? And keep going down. As far as your education, some people prefer to put that up at the top of the resume. Myself, I keep mine actually at the bottom of my resume. There's no judgment there from a recruiter, just so that you know. But if you're applying for a role that may be in high demand, where there's a lot of competition, if you're proud of your educational background, put that up to the top. Think about your resume that way. Think about your profile that way. What are the accomplishments that you as an individual are most proud of? Whether they are educational accomplishments, whether they are actual functional accomplishments that you've achieved in your roles, that should be the first thing listed on your resume. What do you want us to know about you if you only had 10 seconds? And think about that. Now, again, please don't take that as every recruiter here is only spending 10 seconds on a resume. I recruit architects for Amazon. I'm spending a lot more time on those profiles. But when I ask a broad group of recruiters that are recruiting for roles across the entire organization, that was probably the most consistent piece of feedback I received from everybody.
Awesome, Gary. That's great advice. So just as a recap, we really want to keep it simple, add the numbers, and be results oriented, and keep it simple. That's awesome advice. We got a lot for the next question. We got a lot of questions about, at the high level, what is it like working here at Amazon? We have a very unique and peculiar culture with things like door desks or dogs in the office, and so if you can give us some insight to maybe the leadership principles and how that dives into general work here, what it's like working here, what the people are like working here, and teams, that'd be great.
Well, you can pan down and see what it's like working here if you really want. You guys want to know why I'm still at Amazon. What he's about to show you, or what he is showing you right now, is a big reason why I'm still at Amazon. But as far as what it's like to work here, oh my gosh, that's Nico, by the way. It's an adventure. Oh man, it is an adventure. We move quick. I can tell you guys why I'm still at Amazon after almost 7 years. I'm still here because I feel like there's not a day that goes by where I'm not in control of where I'm headed. And to somebody who's focused on building my own career and gaining more valuable experiences and things that I value, that is something that is very important to me. And so when it comes to Amazon, we move quickly, we pivot fast. If I speak about my own personal team here, the goal that we're shooting for right now is different than the goal that we had 2 months ago. But do you know why that goal has changed? That goal has changed because the business needs have changed. And so when it comes to working at Amazon, I work with some of the brightest individuals I've ever met in my life. I speak with some of the smartest engineers that have ever walked the face of this earth. I am privileged beyond words when it comes to the individuals that I get to interact with on a daily basis. So for me, it is a fast-paced, exciting job where each day I am asked to try and solve, or at least input some thought into problems that in many cases other companies are, maybe not taking it to the company level, but certainly as a recruiter, other recruiters are not having to deal with at other organizations. And again, that's something that I value. Here at Amazon, we certainly do. Kevin mentioned the leadership principles. The leadership principles are involved in almost every decision that this company makes, not the least of which would be our hiring decisions. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later on here too. But those leadership principles, having a bias for action, insisting on high standards in your work and how you go about dealing with other people or customers or projects, all of those things are very, very important. I can assure anybody that is watching this or listening that Amazon does not, we don't just give those leadership principles lip service. We actually follow through. They really are ingrained in the decisions that we make as an organization. And so if you want to know what it's like to work at Amazon, review the leadership principles. Talk to somebody that works here about those leadership principles. Get their thoughts, get their perspective on them.
Awesome. That's great insight, Gary. And you know, you touched upon the leadership principles, and I think that leads into our next question that we have gotten from a lot of our followers, and that was around interviews. So one person asked, what is your advice for effectively preparing for Amazon interviews? And I do believe, and you can probably touch on this, that the leadership principles have a large part to do with that. But yep, so just tell us, what's your advice to preparing for an Amazon interview?
Whew. There's a lot we can talk about here for everybody. And the reason that I pause, just so that everybody knows, is that I specialize here at Amazon. So my focus is one job family, engineering. And specifically within that one job family, one level, like senior engineer. So like I work one very small section, like one small portion of the pie, so to speak. But it doesn't matter if you're interviewing for a CTO position or an entry-level customer service position. Those leadership principles are going to make or break your interviews. And I have seen candidates come into Amazon for their interviews exceed our technical bar in terms of the functional skills. And again, it doesn't have to be specific to engineering. Can be any role where there is some sort of a domain expertise required or some sort of a functional hands-on knowledge required. They've exceeded the expectations, but because they fell short on leadership principles, we ultimately didn't extend them an offer. And so if you're looking for one piece of advice, it would really be to review those leadership principles very, very thoroughly. Now, I'm not going to suggest that you sit there and write down examples from the past where you have operated in that sort of a way for all 14 of those leadership principles, though some candidates do. Some candidates also bring those notes into their interviews. Some interviewers have absolutely no problem with that. So when it comes to preparing for them, you've got to be comfortable talking about examples from your past. And when I say you've got to be comfortable, what I really mean by that is you've got to be comfortable going into a certain level of depth. Because I'll give you an example. Have backbone, disagree and commit. It's one of, for the engineers that I recruit, it's probably one of the most important leadership principles. They are influencers. They are visionaries. They are thought leaders. So there are going to be days where they're going to need to be comfortable influencing decisions. However, there are also going to be days where they need to figure out how to get everybody on board with a decision, even if not everybody agrees with the direction. And that's not always easy. And so one of the questions that we may ask you in an interview that talks specifically about that leadership principle might be something like, excuse me, Kevin, can you talk about a time when you and your manager disagreed over something that you felt was important? Now, if you're me, you hear a question like that, you freeze up. Because I'm like, oh no, is this a trick question? Are they trying to are they trying to get me on this one? What I can tell you after 6.5 years here, like there are no trick questions in our interviews. Like that is a legit question. And quite frankly, I disagree with my manager on an almost weekly basis, but I think that's why we work well together and why we have for the past 6 years, because we both have very different opinions and things, but we find common roads and we move forward. And so when it comes to disagreement, you'll talk about that instance, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to disagree. But then what those interviewers are going to do is they're going to start asking you all sorts of follow-up questions. How did you try to get your manager on board? Why was your manager reluctant? What was the final outcome of that situation? Did that outcome impact your team? Did it impact your working relationship with your manager? Did that outcome potentially impact customers? Did that outcome maybe impact the way in which you would approach future situations? And you can start to see that you talk about that one little thing that you and your manager disagreed about. But then what we've done is we've kind of peeled that proverbial onion and really try to get as much of that story as possible, because when we take a step back, what we want to do is we want to see, is this how we would have wanted somebody to have operated if they were in Amazon? And you'll get a lot of those hints, you'll get a lot of those clues just by reviewing those leadership principles.
That's great. They definitely sound like such a really important part about working here, and I know being an Amazonian myself that it really leads all the all the way that we solve problems here on a day-to-day. So the next question is around, still around interviews. So if you can give us, a high-level view of what the general interview process looks like, and also one of our commenters asked, what would you suggest for dress code for interviews?
Good question. All right. Dress code, easy one. In most cases, dress comfortably. As long as you're not wearing anything offensive, we're not concerned with how you dress. We're concerned with the impact that you can make when it comes to Amazon's customers. That's what we really care about. So, obviously, you don't want to come here in like I said, offensive clothing, but anything else, jeans and t-shirt, a-okay. As far as the interview process, to be perfectly honest and candid with everybody, I think it really depends on the role that you're interviewing for. There are a lot of different interviews, and I've personally been recruiting for enough years now that I can comfortably say that interviewing is an imperfect science at best sometimes. And Amazon is really good at trying to experiment with different ways to really figure out if we're making the best possible decisions when it comes to hiring people. If you're an engineer, for example, in most cases, you're going to go through a phone interview. I hope that you're having a nice, thorough conversation with the recruiter first, and that they're talking to you about the expectations of the roles and really helping you understand if it does align with what you're looking to do next. Assuming that conversation goes well, that next step should be a phone interview, and it's going to be a technical phone interview, meaning the interviewer will probably build some rapport, talk to you about your work, talk to you about their work, but then at some point they're going to give you some sort of a question that's going to get pretty meaty, it's going to get pretty challenging. And again, if you're an engineer, you're going to have to write some code there in that phone interview. In a phone interview, in most cases here at Amazon, and in most cases, regardless of the job family that you're interviewing for, the goal with a phone interview is really just to make sure that we do need to bring somebody in-house for a full interview loop and a full assessment. The goal in a phone interview is not to be like, hey, this person right here is going to be the next best engineer at Amazon. That's not the point of a phone interview. The point of a phone interview is for us just to make sure, like, hey, this person really does, they can code, they are in an engineering role. In this case here, it looks like their goals and what's next, what would be the next step for them in their career, they do align. Once you get to the on-site interview, it's going to be pretty thorough. In most cases, you're going to meet with a handful of individuals the day that you're on site. Each one of those individuals will probably be given one or two of Amazon's leadership principles to ask you some questions about. We do use a lot of behavioral questioning, and that behavioral questioning is designed to tease apart how we think somebody is going to operate within the confines of those leadership principles. For example, that have backbone, disagree, and commit question, where I was asking about a time where you disagreed with your manager. We build a lot of those questions, and we give question banks to our interviewers so that they understand what pieces of information and data they should be extracting through those interviews. Different job families are going to have different interview processes. Some of them don't even require full on-site interviews. Some are done over the phone. Some are done in an automated fashion. So to answer your question, it really will depend on the role there. But hopefully I was still able to provide at least a little bit of color around some of the things that will undoubtedly be assessed regardless of the job that you're interviewing for.
That's really great advice, Gary. Thanks for that. I think that knowing those leadership principles and being prepared for the process and what comes and what they're looking for is great insight for our followers. And the last question, or we have a few others. A lot of people were asking about after they apply. So perhaps on the site, their review, it might be under review, or perhaps they have not heard a response from a recruiter. What would you suggest to these people in trying to get a response or following through with resumes that are under review?
That was one of the most common themes that I saw across every one of the social media platforms that this post went up on. And what I can share, and I just like that question, what can you do to stand out? I did poll my fellow recruiters on that one as well, because I wanted to understand in the past when they've had instances where either they were unable to get back to a candidate or they've heard about times when people were unable to get back to candidates. I wanted to understand what happened and what went into that. What I can tell you is that there are a lot of different reasons why somebody may apply and then not hear something. My hope is that it's not because somebody here didn't care. That would be a recruiter that's not doing their job, and that would certainly be a bit of a problem. What I can tell you is that oftentimes we are looking at thousands of applicants for one single role. Thousands. We post one brand new engineering role, and a couple hours later we may have thousands of resumes to be going through for that position. And so in most cases, you are going to find that It's simply just a matter of trying to get through that volume. What we don't want to do is we don't want to do an automated response where we say, hey, here's some machine learning algorithm that has ranked your resume, and there wasn't even a human touch there that says, no, we're not interested. I know I personally am not comfortable with that. You all are putting a lot of time and effort into that, and so you certainly deserve to either receive some feedback on your candidacy or just some feedback on your resume. Something else that I can also share with you is that I would encourage those that have experienced things like this in the past, where if you've noticed that you've not received a response, take a look at the role that you've applied to. How long has it been open? If the role's been open for a year, if it's been open for more than a year, again, not knowing anything about that role myself, I could reasonably say that there's a chance that they may not be recruiting that position right now. That position, for whatever reason, that role could still be available out there on the web, but maybe it's not a priority. There could be a lot of different reasons why. I think more importantly than me trying to make excuses, because I will say that there have been times in the past where even I myself have certainly made that mistake. I'd like to think that I've done a lot to correct that and make sure that that doesn't happen again in the future. And one of the things that I would want to share with the group here is that Amazon internally, and this, I don't think this is something that we've made a public announcement on, but I know that a lot of people have talked about it externally, has been the fact that Amazon internally within recruiting anyways has had a really big push over the past 6 to 12 months on this very topic, on what we can do to make sure that we are getting back to candidates in a much more timely manner than maybe we have in the past. We've instituted what we call the 2 and 5 rule here at Amazon. What that means is that if you have taken a phone interview, the guidance is that recruiters need to get back to the candidate within 2 business days after that phone interview has been completed with feedback on next steps. If you've come for an on-site interview, a full in-house interview, that is a 5-day period. The reason that that's longer than 2 is because we actually do formal debriefs, meaning we get all of those interviewers together in a room to sit there for what could be a half an hour, could be an hour, could be more than an hour, to formally debrief on interviews and have a conversation. So that is a 5-day period now. And the goal right now is to get every one of the teams here at Amazon adhering to those goals with no defects. And so that is a very big push that we have internally here at Amazon, and I can tell you all that has been a very big topic of conversation amongst the recruiting community here at the company.
Awesome, thank you, Gary. Now, when we get towards the end of this live session, we have a couple questions that are fill in the blank that we just send you a little bit, just round robin. And if you could just give us short answers and fill in the blank. The first one is, the best part of working at Amazon is?
Oh, the dogs. Easy question, the dogs. You're talking to somebody who wants to be like director of the wolf pack eventually. So I'm going to figure that out, by the way. I'm in the process of writing a white paper, everybody.
Awesome. The next one, the most important leadership principle to me is?
Customer obsession. I mean, that's why we're all here. Whether you are a candidate or whether you are an external customer that has no interest in working in Amazon, I think customer obsession is by far the number one thing that every one of my teammates anyway strives for.
Awesome. And the last one is, my favorite moment from my time at Amazon was?
Oh my gosh.
Maybe it's every day with the dogs.
It's I'm sorry. I've got a lot, but that'd be the easy answer. The easy answer could be every day. I mean, we had a new puppy that just joined the pack a couple of days ago, but no, for me, honestly, there's one hire that stands out more than others. There was a candidate that I started working with this guy in 2015, and I actually brought him to the offer stage 3 different times over the course of 3 years. The first time, because it was 3 years ago, I'm actually comfortable sharing this now. I actually talked him out of accepting the offer because it just wasn't right for him and his family. But I think he was a bit blinded by the excitement to see that at the time. The second time, he admitted that was the right decision the first time, but we got this close. We got this close to getting this guy, and just for background, he's like a 1 of 3, meaning there are like 3 people in the world that have his type of experience and skills. The third time, because I'd spent so much time with him and I knew so much about just him and what was important to him, when we announced that we were going to be opening up a new satellite office, I happened to remember that this particular individual had family in that area. And so I called him up and I told him, I'm like, remember how I told you I was going to wait you out? Well, I think the time is up. And I talked to him about what was going on. His wife at the time worked at Google in New York, and I told him, like, maybe it's time for the wife to put in some transfer papers and you guys go back to Colorado. And I'm happy to say he's been working in Colorado for the past 6 months for Amazon. So that was a 3-year engagement with one candidate. And nobody knows this, but after he accepted, I had a little bit of a solo celebration just because of how much work and effort went into that. But that right there was probably the thing I was most proud of here.
That's a really cool story, Gary. I think that talks a lot about, we've had a lot of questions about, do recruiters catch up back and follow back and find the right role for you? So I think that's an awesome and amazing story of that happening, and I know that happens throughout Amazon with our other recruiters. So that was our end, and I'm going to ask you if you have any final thoughts, just knowing that the people out here want to know what it's like working at Amazon, how to get a job here, what it's like working here. If you can give us just a few sentences or a couple lines on final thoughts to those people who want to work here and want to know what it's about working here.
We work hard, we have fun, and we make history. And that's Amazon's motto, and my team, we live that on a daily basis here, the entire organization. As far as advice, have some fun with us. We're not a bunch of drones over here. Regardless, whether or not you see them flying across the skyline, we're not drones here. So we want to see the real you. Be authentic. Be authentic in this process. Be authentic when you're speaking with us. Be authentic in your communications. We want to see the real you. And so, as far as a final thought, take a look at Amazon.jobs. There are a lot of new filters on the website, so you guys can search through all sorts of categories. You can search through things like locations, dates. Have some fun with those job searches, but hopefully you got a couple of nuggets that you're able to use here for future job searches.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gary. We appreciate the time that you've had. And as Gary mentioned, make sure you visit us at Amazon.jobs and find your next route in your work with Amazon. So thank you, Gary, for joining us, and thank you, everyone, for your questions. Until next time, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.